hope you're well. Welcome back for another video. Today I am back with another travel guide. So this time it is for the area of Ayers Rock, or also called Uluru in Australia. So I'm going to be going through how to get there, places to stay, things to do, and just some general tips and tricks for if you are thinking about visiting the area. So I've got my notes here, so just so that I make sure I don't miss anything out. So apologies if I keep looking down at these. So let's get started. So Ayers Rock, or Uluru, I'll be referring to as both of them throughout the video, is an area of the Northern Territory state of Australia. Even though Ayers Rock is actually sort of in the middle of Australia, it's in the Northern Territory. It is known for being a massive rock. They call it a monolith, but it's got so much history, culture, and is sacred to the Aboriginal people known as, oh no, I'm really going to butcher this, the Anangu. I'll put that up on screen. So it's a very remote town. The nearest big town is 200 miles away, which is Alice Springs. So yeah, it's very remote and it's quite difficult to get to, but there are several routes. So you can drive from Alice Springs. It's about a 4 or 5 hour journey from there, I think. Or alternatively, you can fly. So when I visited, I flew in from Melbourne and then flew back to Melbourne. So did a sort of a round trip, but you can fly from Melbourne, Sydney, Cairns, and they operate daily flights, and Brisbane operates 3 times a week. I found that it was cheaper to go from Melbourne rather than Cairns, and so that sort of influenced the route we took throughout the rest of Australia. And the flights are about 3.5 hours long from any one of those destinations, which, as someone living in Europe, is bizarre because 3.5 hours is the time it takes to get to Greece, so from the UK. So that sort of just gives a scale of how vast the country of Australia is. So Ayers Rock was one of the things I really wanted to see when planning my trip to Australia, and it was 100% worth it. Definitely add it onto your itinerary. We were there for about 48 hours, but could easily have done with another day. The only thing is that it is very expensive. So because obviously it's difficult to get to, so it costs money to get there, but then also because it's so remote, the actual activities, the accommodation, the food, it is all very pricey. So for 2 nights and 3 days, it was a total of £925. I can't remember if that's per person or for 2 of us, so I'll double check that and pop that on the screen. So yeah, it's not a cheap part of Australia to visit. I mean, hardly any of Australia is cheap to visit, but it definitely does bump up the price of your trip overall. But as I said, it is 100% worth it and definitely worth visiting. So I'm now going to talk about sort of where you stay when you visit Ayers Rock. So the actual rock itself is about 20 kilometres outside of a town called Uluru, which is where the Ayers Rock Resort is based, and this is where you'll find all the accommodation, a town centre. It's got restaurants, shops, supermarkets, but the good thing about the resort is that you do actually have views of the rock. So it's as if you're always looking at it when you're in the town. So it's located about 18 to 20 kilometres from Ayers Rock, the actual resort, and you land into Ayers Rock Airport, and then there is a free shuttle to the kind of resort, to the town, which is about 20 minutes. You do need also to purchase a national park pass. I can't remember how much we paid, so I'll look up what I paid in 2023, and I'll also pop up what the price is now. We only got asked for it once when we were there. However, it is, you need to have it, otherwise you can't visit the park. And even though we got asked for it once, they obviously do check for it. There are a range of accommodation options to sort of suit a range of budgets. So the proper budget option is the campground. So, you know, it does what it says on the tin. It's camping, there's tents, sort of separate washing facilities. It didn't actually go round it, but sort of this is from researching online, so I'll pop up some pictures of what the campground looks like. I don't know if I'd want to stay there. I'm not a camping person, but I'm sure it'd be cool to camp under the stars in the middle of Australia. But yeah, instead I went for sort of the mid-range hotel, which was the Outback Lodge. So this is actually divided into two parts. You've got the Outback Lodge and then the hotel. So I stayed in the hotel part mainly because the lodge was more like a hostel. There's dormitories and family rooms, but it's more sort of suited to sort of like a proper backpacker. And whereas I went with my cousin and we wanted sort of like a private room, mainly because it was our first destination after arriving in Australia. So we thought we'll probably want to shower, get changed, refresh up, and also have a good night's sleep, which I'm glad we did it this way round because we were thinking about doing Ayers Rock last on our trip. So this was actually by doing it first, it was actually the nicest hotel that we stayed in Australia, and that was needed after the 24-hour flight. So yeah, the lodge is more of a hostel style. Again, I'll put some pictures of the dorm rooms and the prices of the rooms at the time of recording. Whereas we stayed in the hotel element, we had a queen room which had two big double beds. They were really spacious and really comfy, and then obviously we had a private ensuite in our room. But then the rest of the lodge and the hotel, they sort of share facilities. So there is a pool, which was really nice to sit and chill by in one afternoon. There's a communal kitchen, so you can go to the supermarket and buy food to cook there, and there is a barbecue area as well, so you can go and buy some meat and stuff to cook on the barbecue. But if you don't fancy cooking, there is a kiosk that does pizzas and burgers, and we ate here one night after one of our excursions, and the food was really yummy, and they sort of play music, and it's a bit like a bar vibe, which was really nice. And then you've got the Bow House, which is where they serve breakfast. So we went for the continental option and it cost us $38 each, which was about £22. So it's very expensive for a continental breakfast, but you know, again, because it's in the middle of nowhere, it costs for them to get the food transported, so you can see why it's expensive. So yeah, that's sort of like the lower end of the budget. You've got the campground, then the lodge, the Outback Lodge and the hotel. Then you have the Emu Walk apartments. So these are sort of self-contained apartments. Again, I'll pop some pictures up. So looks like you've got your own kitchen area to cook in, and then there is also a pool. So yeah, these seem sort of quite basic, and if you're looking to do more like cooking your own food and stuff, these look like they could be a good option. And then you've got the more luxury hotels, which are the Desert Gardens and the Sails in the Desert. So we actually, on our way being picked up on one of our tours, we stopped outside these hotels, and you could tell that they look quite nice. So yeah, if you're looking to sort of splash out and treat yourself, these would be good hotels. They've all got pools and restaurants, but I really liked our Outback Hotel, one that we stayed in. You know, we weren't at the hotel much, so it did what we needed it to do. We slept there, we showered there, and that was kind of all we really needed. So the resort is quite sort of spread out, and so there is a shuttle that sort of takes you round, and it just sort of follows a set route. You hop on the bus where you want and it takes you round, and then you can hop back off. So yeah, that's all the accommodation. So I'll now talk about the town centre and the amenities in the resort. So in the middle of the town, you've got a range of restaurants, one of which is called the Gecko's Cafe. So to me, this is a little bit like a Wetherspoons in that you find a table, you look at the menu, and then you go up to the counter to order, and then they bring your food. We went here on our first night, just because we wanted some proper food. I think I had a burger, but they do sort of burgers, pizzas, pastas, a whole range of food. So that's more of a sit down place. There are some other restaurants as well, which I'll leave the names of here, but we didn't go to those, so can't really comment on them. The other one that I did like the look of was called the Ayers Rock Noodle Bar. I think that's quite, it's a good pun. But so this is more of a takeaway thing, but again, we wanted to sit down and have some food. There's also a supermarket, so we stocked up on snacks for the excursions we were doing the following days. And there are also some souvenir shops. So again, it's very pricey for what you're ordering. Sort of, I bought a magnet in the souvenir shop and it was about $10. So it's, it's quite pricey, but again, you can see why it is when it's so remote. So yeah, definitely recommend going and visiting the town centre. The restaurants are nice and the shops, but yeah, just note they are very pricey. I'm now going to talk about the experiences and the excursions you can do at Ayers Rock. So one of the most famous ones is to get the classic sunset or sunrise shot of the rock. So they offer lots of different tours for this, where they pick you up from your accommodation and they drive you to a lookout point where you've got the whole of the rock in shot. Quite often they'll provide sort of sparkling wine or some drinks, and you watch the sunrise or the sunset. The reason such a big deal is made out of this is because as the sun rises or sets, the light from the sun makes it look like the rock is changing colour. So at the start of the sunset, it might look sort of a brown, and then as the sun set, it looks like the rock's turning red. So it is really impressive, and it is worth doing. So yeah, that's sort of one of the famous activities you can do. The activity that we chose to do was a sunrise base walk. So we organised this through a company called AAT Kings. There was a link on the resort website, but you can also book through tour operators like Get Your Guide or Viator. This was quite pricey, but it included all transport, and because it's a sunrise walk, we got given breakfast included. So we got picked up at about 5 a.m. We went in the Australian winter time, so obviously the sunrise was a bit later, so I imagine if you go in the summer, you'd probably have to be picked up about 3-4 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, we got taken to the base of the rock when it was still really dark. Wear layers for this, because I was very stupid and I wore shorts when it was still sort of very, very cold. However, by the mid-morning, the sun had risen and it was a bit warmer. So yeah, wear layers that you can sort of take off as it gets a little bit warmer. So we started our walk around the rock, and we had an amazing guide who told us all the stories of how the rock came to be, all the cultural stories, which were really interesting. And there's sort of markings on the rocks, and they tell you the stories of how those came to be. And yeah, they're very believable. And it's, they're sort of fable stories that are used to teach children lessons in life. So there is a marking on the rock that looks like a spear, or it's like a line, and that is meant to have been a spear that was used to kill someone in one of these stories. So yeah, they're very, very believable. The only thing is for the first half of our walk, we weren't allowed to take pictures. The rock is sacred to the Aboriginal people, so they ask that you don't take pictures. However, once you get past a certain point, you can. But it was quite nice to be able to just focus on the stories and sort of really soak in where we were without having to worry about taking pictures. So yeah, I would highly recommend that. The whole thing took about 4.5 hours. So you walk around the whole base of the rock. It's about a 10-kilometre walk, but it is all flat. Yeah, it's a really nice walk. I can imagine in the summer it does get quite hot, but in the wintertime it was nice, and sort of by the time the sun's risen you sit and have your breakfast watching it, and it's an amazing experience. And then my favourite activity that we did while we were there was the Field of Light trip, and this this was probably one of the main reasons that I booked to go to Ayers Rock. So the Field of Light is is an art installation which is made up of, I mean, there's thousands of glass bulbs that light up in the dark. So the main experience is walking around the field among all the lights. However, if you choose to do the Star Pass, which is what we did, you get picked up about an hour and a half before sunset and you get driven to a lookout point where you can still see Ayers Rock. We got given canapes, so we had like a kangaroo burger, we had a blue cheese thing. So yeah, we got to try lots of different food, which was really nice. And you have some prosecco, or there's soft drinks, and you watch the sunset over Uluru, but also you watch the lights begin to light up, and yeah, it was amazing. So we spent about an hour and a half at the lookout point watching the sunset, watching the lights come on, and then we went down a little track onto the actual Field of Lights, and then we got a half-hour 45-minute walk around around the lights in the field. So you can't actually see Ayers Rock from the field, which is why we did the Star Pass, because that gave you the lookout from Ayers Rock as the sunset, whereas if you just do sort of the standard pass, you don't get that bit, you just get dropped off at the field and you walk around. So it's definitely worth sort of going for the Star Pass, because you do get a lot more and you get to see a lot more. So yeah, definitely recommend doing that. So those were the activities that we did. And then the other things you can do, you can have dinner at the base of Ayers Rock, you can do stargazing, or you can also do a day trip to another set of rocks that are about 50 kilometres away, it's got two names, it's called the Olgas or Katatuja. Again, I'll write that on the screen because I think I'm butchering the name. So yeah, that's sort of like another set of rocks that have cultural significance to the Aboriginal people. We didn't actually do this just because we didn't have enough days, but had we had another day we probably would have done that. So going back to how pricey it is, so all of these activities cost a lot. There are actually some free activities you can do. Around the resort there is a camel farm that the shuttle drops you off at, so you can go and watch the camels and interact with them, which I think would be quite cool. There is a free didgeridoo class each day, so you get to watch people and learn how the didgeridoo works as an instrument. They show movies daily. I don't know where they do this. Again, I'll try and pop some information on screen, and I think the movies are significant to the Aboriginal culture, so it's not like sort of a standard movie drive-in. They are significant to the area of Ayers Rock, but I think it would be fascinating to sort of learn more about the culture. The next one is actually advertised as for the kids, but this is probably one that me and my cousin would have really wanted to do had we had time. And you can do Aboriginal painting, so they give you a wooden sculpture and you get to paint it and take it home, which yeah, I would have loved to have done that if we had enough time. And then finally they do some garden walks around some of the hotels, looking at the gardens and all the flowers that grow there. So yeah, there are some free activities, so that if you find you're getting through your budget quite quick, that's a way to spend some time without spending any money. And then finally, the last free activity you can do, again this is probably my favourite thing that we did for free, is that there are a couple of lookout points throughout the resort where you get a free view of Ayers Rock. You don't have to pay to go into the national park. You can or pay for a trip to take you there. You can make your own way there and look at it for free. So the first lookout point is called the Immelung, and this was about 2 minutes walk from our hotel, so the Outback Lodge. and it's sort of in the hotels are sort of dotted around a ring, and the lookout point is in the middle, so it's probably easily accessible from all of the hotels. But yeah, that we headed straight there after we checked in to sort of get our first glimpse of the rock, and it was really spectacular. And we sat there for about an hour and a half, taking photos, taking videos, and then because we got there about an hour before sunset, so we could just begin to start to see the rock change colour. And then the other lookout point is called the Pioneer Point, which was at the back of our hotel. So the Outback Lodge is actually a good place to have access to both lookout points, and this one was really good as well because you got to see the Olgas in the distance as well. So yeah, I'll pop up pictures of the different lookout points so you can see the views from those. So yeah, they're definitely worth getting or using free time to go and look for that. We were going to go to the town centre and get some food to take away to watch the sunset, but we just mistimed it, and yeah, ended up going to get food when it was dark, so there was then no point of going to watch the sunset because it had already set. So yeah, definitely worth doing those. So yeah, that's sort of the end of the experiences. Obviously there's loads more that you can do, but they're sort of like the main ones that a lot of people tend to do. I'll leave a link to the website below, which takes you through to all the different excursions that are offered. And so the last thing I'm going to talk about, typical Brit, is the weather. So obviously Ayers Rock is in the middle of the desert, so it does get hot, but then it drops dramatically at night. So jackets and jumpers are advisable at night. So we went in May, the end of May, and it was still really warm during the day. Obviously May is the Australian winter, but it was still sort of 25, 26 degrees during the day. However, it was cold in the morning and at night. So yeah, when we woke up for our base walk, my cousin and I were in shorts and like a jumper, and then we saw the other people on our tour had like full length trousers, jackets, hats, scarves, gloves, and we thought, oh my goodness, we've made a big mistake. And it was cold, but actually after an hour or two it had started to get warmer, and so by the end we were sort of stripping off and we're just in our shorts and t-shirt, whereas everyone still had their layers on and they were sweating. So yeah, it's definitely worth taking shorts, but also be aware that the early mornings are very cold. So yeah, I think that is everything for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments box, or even if you've been to Ayers Rock and have got any other tips that I haven't thought of, then again please feel free to leave them so that other people can take advantage of them. So yes, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Would 100% recommend adding Ayers Rock to your Australia trip if you are able to. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.